You are listening to Personalization Outbreak, a podcast about the collapse of traditional corporate standards in today's more personalized world. I'm Llopis. I'm a leadership strategist, author, contributor to Forbes, and founder of the Leadership in the Age of Personalization movement. On this show, I'm interviewing executives across multiple sectors to find out how the balance between standardization and personalization can exist. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Personalization Outbreak Podcast. Leadership is not just about managing people or processes. It's about being fully present, aligning with what your purpose is, and empowering others to rise to their highest potential. But we can't lead today with yesterday's mindset. And I think we could all agree with that. See, the world is moving too fast and people have changed, and the nature of work has changed. The systems and services that we rely on are being reshaped in ways we couldn't have imagined just 5 years ago. See, this is more evident in nursing than ever before, and more than in any other profession. Our guest today is Dr. Ralene Brooks. Now, Ralene is the Dean of the College of Nursing at the University of Phoenix, an advocate for creating leaders who lead not just with skill, but with heart. A registered nurse for nearly 30 years, Ralene deeply understands the pressures nurses are facing, and she's dedicated to shaping nurse leaders who are ready to meet these challenges. Now, Ralene will help us explore how nursing leadership must evolve to address the healthcare industry's unprecedented demands, many that go well beyond care delivery. We'll also discuss how nursing leaders can break free from outdated practices, the power of connection and trust, and why purpose and intentionality must be central to how we lead moving forward. Leadership in nursing is about more than systems and structures. It's about the human beings who keep those systems alive. Ray, thank you so much for being such a supporter of what we do in the show. I'm so happy to have you here. I know that you're just going to excite our audience to take action and to actually reflect about where they stand in their own lives and careers. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor, Glenn. And thank you for bringing personalization in nursing at the forefront.
Well, it certainly is an important topic. And, as you know, I've been writing for Forbes for, 16 years now. And the only reason I mention this is as I've done my research on the platform, there's not a lot of conversations about nursing. And I've tried to do my best to add a few insights, but I often wonder, Ray, why these topics only stay within their little bubble in healthcare rather than in the mainstream media. Any reason why you think that's the case, or is it just a function of how healthcare operates? They keep things so close to the vest that they make the broader audience that they actually serve unaware how things are evolving or not. I don't know. What do you think?
I do think that there's such rapid change in healthcare that people are just trying to keep up, Glenn. I'll be honest. Healthcare, unfortunately, is a big business, and change happens quickly when, policies and procedures are rapidly evolving and changing. And I do believe that we're so busy in nursing keeping up with the policy and procedure changes and the new technology and a better way to be more efficient. And while also at the tail end providing compassionate care, we just don't have a voice loud enough to be able to share our thoughts and make a big impact.
Well, as you just said, things keep changing. But what intentional strategies do you believe are most critical for nursing leaders to adopt and thrive amidst this change?
I do believe that when you've got a team of nurses, you really have to understand a strategy that I would say is really understand your people. We all went into nursing because at the core of what we do is service, caring, and compassion. As a leader, we cannot forget that. We have to be able to, much like when we enter a room, for example, Glenn, we walk in the room, if the patient is disheveled or the patient is confused or not tracking and making eye contact, we pick up on that as nurses. As a leader, that same paradigm shift needs to happen. So as a leader, when you walk into the room, you need to understand the people you're working with. You need to understand their strengths. You need to understand how they process information. For example, How do people feel like they're heard? Well, when they're asked. But if you've got a team member who's perhaps introverted or analytical and processes information a little slower because they're in their mind trying to process information before responding, that leader needs to be intentional and um, ask ask. So, for example, if Kathy is a real quiet person and has some wonderful thoughts, but she's analytical and slow to process, you need to ask. We need to ask those questions so that people feel heard. And as a leader in nursing, um, it's easy to have one-way communication and directives, right? A lot of times in leadership, at the end of the day, we have a job to get done. But it's more important to ensure that we are there to listen to our people. And again, that same paradigm shift of caring and compassion when we walk into the room with our patients needs to translate to our team of nurses. As a leader, you need to be able to assess the skill and the talent of your team, the strengths, and also provide a platform and forum where people feel safe enough so that they can share their thoughts and be heard.
If I may go here, and again, you could pass if you'd like, but you grabbed my attention on a topic. So let me give you some context. So last night I had the opportunity, and it was an honor to teach a class for Virginia Tech there. It was their hospitality master's program. And what I've learned in that session, and these are our future leaders, and I'll give you a real just a specific example. One of the students said, Mr. Llopis, I have professors that are asking me to use what I think are outdated sources to do my thesis. And I often wonder, why is it that my professor isn't giving me the opportunity to express what I actually see in my day to day through my experiences? And rather than place such a heavy dependency on what's been done in the past. Now, you might be saying, well, what does this have to do with care and compassion? Well, that student was sharing that with me because in the context of talking about the importance of unleashing individuality, this individuality's been feeling suppressed the entire year, not feeling comfortable to share her opinion on the matter, and was asking me. I thought, my goodness, why does it have to get that far for someone to feel like they have to ask me rather than to ask the person that's actually creating this barrier that doesn't allow them to show their care and compassion? But with that context in mind, you said, we have to be able to evaluate, know, understand what makes each of our team members unique. And as we discussed that yesterday, they felt like that was foreign. Like, you really think that leaders are thinking that way? I wish you could have been there, right? Because they're desperate to be seen and heard in a way that allows them to share their care and compassion. I don't know, maybe I went off topic here, but
No,
does
not
this
at
resonate
all.
with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, a lot of times we've got rapid innovation is like a buzzword and it's at the forefront of all operations, innovation in healthcare as well. And things move so rapidly. We need, as leaders, need to have dedicated time to really listen to our people. You can't get a team of people to engage unless they feel like they're being heard, their thoughts are being understood, and they are adding value to the work they're doing. So, again, it takes time, but it's a valuable piece of leadership in nursing. It's so important that we listen and we learn, and then we also praise our people for all the skill and the talent that they're bringing to the team. Not everyone will have the same skill set, but as a leader, that's part of our job to recognize the skill set and to listen. To listen. It takes time to do that, but and sometimes it's painful, but we need to listen. We need to take
Well,
the time to listen.
well, and I think your point is well taken because the nurses of the future are coming and they're expecting that. They're
True.
expecting that. So this is a non-negotiable. as I see it, because if they don't get what they're looking for, just because that wasn't the norm in the past, doesn't prepare us for the nurses of the future. So, having said that, what type of advice, Ray, would you give to nursing leaders on how to move beyond just what they know and instead use their knowledge to make their teams and patients feel more seen and valued and empowered?
I think that that's a great question. I feel like at the end of the day, we all, as nurses, have gone into this profession because service is at the core. And so, a lot of times, because of the diversity of thought and the diversity of ideas and diversity of innovation that, various team members will bring to the table, it's important that we listen. But at the same time, as a leader, I would say we need to remind ourselves the rules of engagement. And the rules of
Hmm.
engagement is that at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, at the end of the outcome, at the end of our collaborative connection, that we put the patient and the family at the forefront. And that is the end recipient of every decision we make. And that we can all agree upon. So it really provides rules of engagement. Okay, let's come up with all these bright ideas. Here are parameters. Here's the end outcome we expect. Is it really serving the patient well? Is it providing the family support, the support they need? Then why are we making that decision if it's not?
Well, so with that in mind, again, are we doing that enough? Are we sticking to that rule? Or do you think some nurses are feeling that they're being challenged to veer away from that? I don't know. What are your thoughts? I mean, there's a lot of frustration in the industry, and that's why you're here to help us give rise and hope to help nurses know that they matter and that we actually need them to lean in even more. But what are your thoughts on that?
I do believe that as a leader, we really need to be open-minded and philosophical in our approach. And I know that's kind of airy-fairy, Glenn, but let me hear me out.
No.
Hear me out. When we keep open-minded, as these constraints happen, as these parameters happen from top down, our CEO or our executive leadership, and here's our parameters, here's your budget, for example, make it happen, here's your policy, make it happen, right? A lot of times, if it's delivered in a way where nurses can understand that at the end of the day, that decision is impacting patients, the care that they're providing, and the families that they're serving. Nurses are on board. Nurses are on board. So how we present it, delivery is everything, right, Glenn? Delivery is
You bet.
everything. And as a leader, we need to learn how to best deliver it to our team, knowing who is on our team.
Hmm. That has lots of meaning. That was deep. That was deep, right? And I hope everybody got it, is that don't expect just because you give it a directive that you're delivering it in a way that your very nurses think that not just that they matter, but the actual patient matters. Very good, very good. So collaboration, I know, is a vital part of this process, especially when you're working with interdisciplinary teams. Right. How do you ensure that connections in a healthcare setting move beyond surface level networking to truly inclusive and purpose-driven collaboration? What are your thoughts on that?
Interprofessional collaboration is vital in a healthcare organization and any organization, right? And a lot of times, that's where a lot of diversity of thought, for example, and sometimes barriers in communication. For example, when the nurse is calling the pharmacist saying, "Hey, I needed that medication like 2 hours ago." And the pharmacist is like, "Well, did you enter it in?" "Sure, I did." And, it's back and forth. And oftentimes nurses will complain, right? Because their fellow interdisciplinary professions are not supporting the work that they're doing. At least that's how it's perceived. Um,
Exactly.
and I do find that when the roles change and they walk the shoes and they switch and actually start to process what it is a pharmacist does or what it is an occupational or physical therapist does in their day-to-day, and put themselves in that interdisciplinary profession's shoes, they have a better understanding. Nurses have a better understanding of, why it is perhaps that medication's 2 hours late. So a strategy I like to use is, okay, let's map out, let's journey map a visual board of what a pharmacist does from the moment I, as the nurse, put in that medication order in the system. That way, nurses can visually see and really feel the impact of their input of the medication order and how it translates to the bedside, and why it could potentially be late. What are barriers that the pharmacist is experiencing? So I do believe a great strategy is walking the walk in that interdisciplinary profession shoes, and that really helps to broaden it, strengthens the team of nurses because they understand what's going on and how it's not just the silo of work that they do, but how it takes a village to really get that patient admitted through discharge. It takes a village, and that nurses are not silo, and nursing is not a siloed job. We need to depend on and lean upon our interdisciplinary team members.
I love this because, I mean, this goes back to we are all interconnected and interdependent on each other. And while that sounds nice, you just gave us an example of what that looks like. And I think that today, given how much change is taking place, that exercise, what you call it, the journey mapping, was that it?
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
journey. Yeah.
No, I love it. I think that, but this is something that we can't rely on just once a year or maybe biannually. I think this is something that oftentimes needs to be more and more revisited because you don't know how these protocols and systems are changing, and we can't assume that they should remain the same if the very people that we're serving are changing and evolving themselves. So it's not
True.
just looking at the journey moving from one side to another, but maybe in reverse because we understand we have to get out in front of change before circumstances force their hand. And this journey mapping provides an excellent opportunity. I love that. So I know that, and better than I do, that the environment within a healthcare setting is extraordinarily important. Um, but nursing leaders today have the ability to shape those environments. How do you feel that team members can more effectively contribute what they value and what they think is important to an environment to elevate their patient care goals?
That's wonderful. It's about culture. It really is about culture and how we show up. And my expectation is you might have a bad day as a team member, but in that moment, on your 12-hour shift or 8-hour day, engaging online in teaching, that you show up as the professor, that you show up as the nurse at the bedside. And that is an expectation. So I do feel like the culture, the culture that the leader provides needs to be brave, honest, and vulnerable, um, but show up consistent either way. You may have a bad day as a leader, you might have lots of challenges and certainly constraints, but share that vulnerability with your team members so they understand and also show up consistent. That way, others on your team know what to expect from you as their leader. It's not like, oh, she's on a high today, on a low today, and her hair is up, so she's angry today, you know, or, she's going to be on edge today. How you show up consistently provides an environment where people can know what to expect from you. Uh, they have the safety of knowing what to expect from you. And that way they can feel themselves, they can feel like they can show up as well. How you mirror, and it's mirrored back, it's reciprocated back. So as a leader, it's important that we show up consistent and we show up positive despite the challenges, because we all have challenges, no matter what the case is, right? In our personal lives, in our professional lives, and certainly in our place of business. But how you show up as a leader matters to the people that you lead.
You know what? What I heard from you, Ray, and again, push back because we're here to get things spicy, is that in the end, you just described how a leader should lead so that there is mutual expectation, respect, and understanding of what everybody brings to their work so that the leader could actually let go and then allow their people to create the culture.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'm just
Absolutely.
asking because what you said was the how the leader shows up and people can expect what they can expect for them because the leader establishes the culture. But I actually heard the opposite. I actually heard you say what a leader should learn how to do so that they can let go and allow their people to create the culture. I'm just throwing it out there. What are you thinking?
I think that's that's great insight, Glenn, because for example, when I first arrived at the university, I was pretty much all business, and as a
Hmm.
woman of brown skin, I'm a brown biscuit. And I don't fit the norm of the deanship. If you look across nationwide, my colleagues, um, you wouldn't necessarily pick me out and say, oh, yeah, she's the dean of nursing. So I was really much all about business upon my arrival. And the example I set is, yes, professionalism is at the utmost importance. However, smile, have fun, listen, laugh when it's appropriate. And if it's not, then apologize, but share why it's funny. And that really creates a culture where people can be themselves. And we just went through an example, an accreditation last week, and accreditors from the Department of Education, CC&E, they interview executive leadership, they interview alumni of the program, and they interview professors of the program. And a consistent question they ask is, how is Dean Brooks working with Dean Brooks?
Ooh, good question.
It was surprising, and I'm not in the room when they do these interviews. I'm
Mhm.
purposefully excluded. And I'm really pleased to share that consistently, the word empathy came up, the word caring came up, the word receptive and open came up. And those are all words that I'm really proud of. And I feel like that's an example, Glenn, where, okay, she's open, she showed up open, professional, receptive, and caring. Now it's our job to mirror those behaviors, but at the same time be ourselves and create a culture surrounding some of those expectations and those leadership styles.
Okay, I think the conversation just officially started, Ray, because what happened here? Number one, you entered the position as a dean and it wasn't the norm. Guess what? Now it is because it's not about anything other than who you are. And so what
Thank you.
that review said is what a dean should reflect.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
that's that's the new norm. That's number one. Number two, you've said the word innovation many times, and I'm going to say I respect that opinion, but I actually think it's reinvention. And you are an example of that. You're in reinventing what a dean of nursing should be, not because it's about you, it's because of what people would want to expect from someone who's a dean. You see how this works?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I
No,
do. I'm
no.
following. I'm
So
following.
no, no, and no, well, you're smarter than me, so I know you're following. It's I hope our audience is because this is not about sticking to the norm. It's about helping norms evolve over time. Why? Because our people are evolving. So if our leaders aren't evolving, then how can our very people respect those who are leading? So
Yes.
what's the tip that Ray just gave us? Ask your department without have someone independently, maybe from HR or somewhere else. Have them ask your team what they expect from you. And then let's
I
see
love
what
it.
people come back with. Because if that doesn't align with what you're all about and what your people expect, then maybe it's time to revisit what you're doing. Or maybe
Self-reflect.
it's
Yeah.
right, self-reflect and then pivot. Or maybe it's time to think about your career. And I'm not being tough. It's just that, look, we're doing this series on the importance of nursing and leadership and healthcare. And, Ralene, this is probably the biggest issue that's come up in all these conversations is that pressure to have to be something that they don't believe in. And what you're talking about now is how do we start disrupting in a positive way to give people rise to where not only the present is, but where we're going in the future.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Glenn, one of the Department of Education visitors said, "Where did you find her?"
You see? Well, the interesting part of that question is, well, fortunately, she took a leap of faith in herself to now
Thank
get
you.
discovered because now you're setting the tone for the next generation of nurse leaders that could potentially become deans and know that way if she did it, then there's now a gateway open for me. So anyway,
Thank you,
it's fun how
Ken.
these interviews, no, no, well, you should
Yeah.
be thanking yourself. I'm just trying to frame this in a way that people can actually understand it and take immediate action, whether it's the journey mapping, whether it's challenging the norm and making it better for what people and patients expect today, not yesterday, but today into the future.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we're there, barriers. Let's talk about barriers. What barriers do you see in nursing today that can actually prevent leaders from fostering deep strategic uh, collaboration? And how can nursing leaders overcome them? Because there are some barriers.
There are barriers. Technology, rapid changing technology is an example. And oftentimes we expect our teams to adapt right away and adopt,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Without really listening. And oftentimes, nurses didn't come in to the nursing profession because um, they are gurus at AI, or they're gurus at scanning things and technology and holding these phones and pressing these buttons. They went into nursing because they want to touch people's lives. As a nurse, they want to make greater impact and make a one-on-one connection with patient and families. And the barrier sometimes can be technology. And so it's important that as a leader, again, we listen to the fears of our people, because a lot of times those barriers are stemming from fear, lack of knowledge. And again, the journey mapping comes to mind because it's important that you take the journey together.
mm.
You might have the wonderful young gun nurse at the bedside who is like on it, right? Just super on it with the technology, can adapt right away, and is, as a matter of fact, maybe a leader, a super user in the technology. And then you might have the nurse who's been at the bedside for 25 years, who just wants to go into the patient's room, give them a nice bath and tell them that they're doing better, and, ask about how they're, what they did before, and make those connections. And somewhere in between, you have to be able to marry that in between. I have to admit, there are some nurses who are excellent whizzes at the technology, and certainly wonderful critical thinkers, but may not have that caring aspect. Um, so part of that journey is taking it together and recognizing out loud as a leader what you're assessing. I've got Jane, who's a super user, who's going to be our wonderful contributor and helping us to get that technology on board and understand it from a usability standpoint. And then I've got Kathy, who just wants to be at the bedside, who wants to give their patient a rub on their back, and then talk with the families and interview the families about what was the patient's history, what were they like before they came into the hospital, and talk about, what led them there. Somewhere in between, there is going to be some learning that happens on both ends, right? You've got that nurse, Jane, you've got that nurse, Kathy, and sometimes the two may not necessarily agree because they're coming from such two, both good intentions, but coming from two different perspectives. And your job as a leader is to see value in both, and to also have your team see value in both. That way they can learn from each other. And that's how you break down those barriers.
I love it. So here's what I took away from this. Technology, in many respects, is becoming a new form of standardization.
Yes.
Um, and it's designed to create greater efficiencies and all the things that we know.
Yes.
But your example is a perfect example of finding harmony between standardization and personalization. So the technology now is this new form of standardization, and there are some nurses, especially the younger nurses, that gravitate towards that. In
Yes.
fact, I should even say this is about age. There's people that
Sure.
just innately gravitate towards it.
Yes.
But then there's those, like you said, that are more high touch, right? That it's about the care and compassion side. And so what you're saying is that a great leader and an effective one values both sides of the equation, but tries to find harmony between the two because it's so easy in this example that you gave to just create another silo around it rather than find the harmony to remove the silo to say something that you have said throughout this discussion too. Let's respect the diversity of thought and let's not give greater weight to one side versus the other. Let's find where both can interact and support one another. How's that for a recap?
I love it. I love it. I love it. And praise and praise. I think it's important when we, as leaders, really praise the talent that each individual member brings to the table. That way, they really do feel heard and respected. And that way, that marriage and that collaboration can happen. Yeah, I love it,
That
Glenn.
that's why it's about harmony. You call it praise, but it's all the same thing. So so for nurses, as we get closer here to the end, for nurses, Ray, who take on leadership roles, how can they balance the often competing demands of achieving results while prioritizing humanity and purpose within their teams and organizations?
I do believe that as a leader, we really need to be mindful of our spirituality, our our psycho, how we're, our mental health. I'll just say it outright, our mental
Yeah.
health and our physical health, and a life with family and friends and experiencing caring from the outside places, support groups that help rekindle that for us is important. Otherwise, it's really difficult to show up consistently day in, day out with a positive outlook. So I would really encourage leaders to recognize what fills their cups. And I'll give you an example for me. I don't know if I've shared this for you, but with you, Glenn, but I'm a competitive bodybuilder. 3 times a year, I get on stage in a micro bikini in front of the National Physique Committee, and I'm quite accomplished. And I'm stepping on a national stage, but that fills my cup, Glenn, because it gives me a physical outlet of, physical workout. And while I'm working out, the meditation that happens to really center me um, gives me uh, the positivity that I need, knowing that I might have 50 or 100 emails in my inbox, right? To get to after 1 hour workout. It gives me enough psychological, mental health, physical health, and spirit. There's a spiritual aspect to it that really helps me to be present in the work that I do as a leader.
Well, first of all, that's impressive. That's
Underneath this
impressive.
jacket is all muscle, Glenn.
Well, but I agree with you. In fact, you know what prepared me for our interview today?
What?
I went to my F-45 training
I
class
love
this morning.
it.
And,
Yes.
and I have to tell you that this has been a new habit that I've created. And so, without getting into the details, thank you for really pushing that because I think it's so important that we find outlets outside of our work to really help us understand that all this intensity that we feel at work, in many respects, is self-inflicted.
Yes.
We create this stuff ourselves. And I'm guilty of that. I mean, I'm a workhorse and I feel sometimes guilty when I go work out, especially if it's in the middle of the day. But I know that I don't need that just for myself.
Yes.
What it allows me to do what I enjoy doing in service of others because
Yes.
it's not about me. Yes, part of it is my mental, physical, but it's really more for me about others. And I think that's what you're saying here. I mean, we
I
have to take care of everything that we are in order to be present and to provide, let's just say, understanding of what it is that we're doing in our work and how to make the best decisions by putting things in proper perspective. That's what I'm taking away from that.
Yes, absolutely, Glenn. Got to take care of ourselves first before we can be present and do our best work with others.
Ooh,
Absolutely.
that's you wrapped it up perfectly there. Okay, so take us out into the future now. I mean, how do you see the role of nursing leadership evolving? Let's say in the next, let's just keep it to 5 years. And what skills or mindsets do you believe will become absolutely non-negotiable? And please don't tell me we have to be AI experts.
It's so easy to, yeah, think of technology when you ask that question with the future, in context. But I do believe that it's important as nurses to show up authentic and to know that it's okay, even despite challenges, to have fun and to encourage your people that you lead to have fun as well. And that's only authentic if you've taken care of yourself first, Glenn, right? Yeah, you gotta be there for yourself first and your family first before you actually show up for work and be a really effective leader. So the skill I would say is really self-reflection,
So,
authenticity.
so can you maybe go a little bit deeper, knowing that for, I would say most people, that feels like a heavy lift, no pun intended. Feels like a heavy lift. So how do you help maybe just a few little tips to help someone get there? I know you talked about what we can do to prepare ourselves for work, but how does someone learn how to show up with more authenticity?
I would say self-reflection, and forgive me for being a little bit vulnerable here, but
Forgive you, I'm hoping. Give it to us. Go.
every morning when I wake up, and I'm a Catholic, so I've got my statue there and my saints are there, and I just say, Lord, help me to lead, help me to be the best leader that I can be for my people. My people deserve that, and that's the essence of who I am. It's what really drives me, I think, to ensure that if I get a little upset, maybe based on a comment or maybe a situation, that at the end of the day, remember you're serving the people that you work with. Your job is to create an environment where they can thrive. And I always pray that I'm showing up with my best self and my best foot forward. And we're all human, but I do feel like self-reflection, getting yourself psyched in the mornings that or before your shift, or really asking yourself, why are you there? Why are you truly there? Well, we work so much, right? We all do in our profession. So it's important that you find meaning to show up authentic.
Ray, that was inspiring, and I appreciate you just
Thank you.
taking the time to impart so much knowledge and wisdom at a time where people are craving it and wanting to feel that they're not alone. And what's happening in healthcare right now is, I think, it's both upsetting people, but yet people are also trying to fight to do what's right. And I think this is part of what a lot of people are being faced is we can say the right things, but will we do those things? And
Yeah.
what your learnings helped us understand and take action on is ways to act on the things that are right for our patients, their families, and for the industry. And if that means that creates a little discomfort, that's just an opportunity for everyone to grow and become better. So thank you so much for your time. You're always so supportive. Really appreciate you and thanks again, Ray.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, Glenn.
Well, as we leave every show, when you lead in the age of personalization, you will see things that others don't, do what others won't, and keep pushing when prudence says quit. Thank you so much, Rayleigh.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks for listening to Personalization Outbreak. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. If you enjoyed the content, visit ageofpersonalization.com to check out our free streaming video series and learn how to get involved in the movement. I'm Glenn Llopis. I wish you a good day, and remember, without strategy, change is merely substitution, not evolution.